November's World Cup Qatar qualifiers are done and over with, so let's talk about them. Quick note, there won't be European qualifiers in this video, just to give more attention to the other confederations, since the last video had like 5 minutes worth of Europe. Well, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that the playoff draw is about to happen in a couple days, and I want to talk about that, so I might as well just include that with the European roundup. Anyways, the last video I did on World Cup qualifiers did really goddamn well, so can we get 400 likes? Let's see it. So another confederation that saw one of their stages of qualification end were the African qualifiers. Just to quickly go over how the African qualifiers work again. 10 groups, 10 winners. Those 10 winners advance to the playoff round. The playoffs will determine 5 nations that will go off to Qatar. Group A saw Algeria seal a spot after they defeated Djibouti 4-0. In Group B, despite losing to Equatorial Guinea, Tunisia find themselves a spot after defeating Zambia. Group C sees Nigeria advance, but they look like they're struggling a bit. They defeated Liberia, but could only get a draw against Cape Verde. Again, it was still enough to advance, but going into the playoffs, that will ask a bunch of questions. Group D, it came to the final day to determine a winner. Cameroon versus a pretty star-studded Ivory Coast side. A Toko Akambe goal was enough to overtake Ivory Coast, and Cameroon go on to the playoffs.
You failed me! 500 years I have waited. Now I must wait 500 more!
In Group B, Mali finished the deed and they qualify for the playoffs as well. Egypt will be seeing the next round after they finished first in Group F, acquiring 4 points in their last 2 qualifiers. Group G, another group that went right down to the wire. Ghana versus South Africa. Ghana came on top with a 1-0 victory, but let me tell you, there's a little bit of controversy. The goal was a penalty, and let me tell you, I don't think that was a penalty. Group H and I were already done. Senegal and Morocco had already advanced to the playoffs last window. And then Group J, pretty interesting stuff. The DR Congo were third going into this window of qualifiers, and miraculously enough, they find themselves first and going into the playoffs now. So, you know, I'm sure my boy Exos is over the moon about that. So, let's go over all the nations that will be going on into the playoff round. Algeria, Tunisia, Nigeria, Cameroon, Mali, Egypt, Ghana, Senegal, Morocco, and the DR Congo. I don't know when exactly the draws are happening, I couldn't find information about that, but the playoff round will consist of 2-legged ties. But it sure will be interesting to see which of these 5 teams will qualify for Qatar. Could we see a shocker, or will it just be the typical teams? We'll have to find out. Boy oh boy, does everyone love CONMEBOL, the most peaceful and non-violent confederation there ever was. Brazil qualified for the World Cup in their first qualifier of the window after defeating Colombia. Argentina were able to extend their unbeaten run, and against Brazil, where they got a draw, they qualify for the World Cup too. Ecuador going into this window were just 1 point above the playoff spot, but now they find themselves 6 points above the playoff spot after getting 2 wins. And this is absolutely huge for them, knowing that they have one of the more difficult schedules going forward. Colombia could only get 1 measly point against Paraguay in these qualifiers. They remain 4th but are just 1 point above elimination. But the biggest mover of the window was Peru. They were 9th going into this window, and now they find themselves 5th. The playoff spot. They defeated Bolivia and Venezuela, with Gianluca Lapadula finding the net in both matches. He only just started playing for Peru last year, and in 17 caps he now has 5 goals. Uruguay continued their terrible form, and no, I'm not just talking about the Argentina loss, I'm also talking about the fact that they lost 3-0 to Bolivia. So yeah, their next couple matches look a lot more simple. They don't exactly have to play Brazil or Argentina anymore, but that Bolivia defeat is definitely going to ask some questions. But after this November window, the South American qualifiers are looking as tight as ever. Between 4th and 9th is a 4-point gap. This could go straight to the wire and be one of the most exciting final days in World Cup Qatar qualification. I don't think many people saw this happening, but Canada are currently top of CONCACAF qualifying. And to be honest, I'm not really that shocked as most people are. They've been solid throughout and they have not lost a single match so far. Also, I should mention Sile? It's either one. But this man deserves some love. But really isn't a shock that this man is top scorer in the qualifiers. He's literally played for a club called Sigma FC. On their way to the top in this window, Canada defeated the senior citizens of Costa Rica and Mexico. And speaking of Mexico, they aren't really looking that good. First was Dos a 0, and then Dosa Uno. As I said in the last qualifier video, Mexico could either see some good points going into a couple easier matches, or this could be a straight disaster for them. They have dropped from first straight down to third, where they're now tied with Panama. Now to second place, the United States, where I really think we made a statement with that Dos a 0 with a very inexperienced and young team. But I think that team was still stuck in Cincinnati when we were playing Jamaica, because we really didn't look that great. Jamaica 100% deserved the win, and I don't know why we have to wait till next year for VAR in CONCACAF qualifying. It is ridiculous. And as a US fan, yeah, I will take a draw, especially after that terrible performance. I mean, still, it is very weird that we just don't have VAR. The one uber positive when it comes to the United States, however, is Tim Weah. He's a goddamn baller. I never not want to see him in the squad. Now, speaking of Jamaica, the addition of Mikel Antonio has paid many dividends. Do not be shocked if the Reggae Boys can find some form these next few qualifiers and find themselves, I don't know, maybe top 4. It's possible. I really do believe this team, especially how they played against us, could do that. Panama also had a really good window. Not only, as I mentioned before, are they tied with Mexico, they've scored as many goals as Mexico. But in the November window, Panama rallied back from 2-0 down in the last 15 minutes to win 3-2 in Honduras. Then they came back from 1-0 down to defeat El Salvador 2-1. And speaking of El Salvador, this is definitely one of those windows that I want to forget. But hey, at least you guys aren't Honduras, who still haven't won once. But you know, who am I to talk? Asian qualifiers, an exciting time for everyone, besides the Vietnamese. Let's look at Group A first. Having beaten Lebanon with a late winner and then Syria, Iran could actually qualify for the World Cup in the next window. They've scored the most goals of any Asian nation so far, with Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh having scored 3 of them. Also, prior to the November window, Mehdi Taremi, who is a little opinionated on Twitter sometimes. This is not the first time this has happened. He was left out of the squad after criticizing the coach on Twitter. In second place, South Korea could also find themselves in the World Cup in the next window, as they're 8 points above third place UAE. Now, the UAE lost to South Korea in this window, but they finally got themselves a victory, jumping them up to third place after they defeated Lebanon. Now, as for Iraq and Syria, they're just kind of vibing. Group B still sees Saudi Arabia continuing to hold on to that top spot. Japan also got some massive results as they continue to improve in form after a terrible start. They beat Vietnam 1-0 and got some revenge in Oman. Junya Ito is in some fine form as he scored in both matches. Now, after losing to Japan in October, Australia haven't really recovered. They could only get themselves 2 draws. To be fair, one of them was against Saudi Arabia, but the other one was against China. That's definitely not something you want to see as an Aussie. What the Aussies also don't want to see is themselves in the playoff spot once again, just 4 points above Oman. Now, Oman, as opposed to the last window where the refs were paid, they could earn only just 1 point against China. Speaking of China, it's unlikely that they find themselves in a playoff spot, let alone qualify for the World Cup, but Wu Lei right now with 4 goals is the current top scorer in Asian qualifiers. And yes, I know, Vietnam still have 0 points. So that is your World Cup Qatar qualifiers in November roundup. Of course, I will do another one of these World Cup qualifiers so far video going into like January or so. But of course, a massive shout out to our patrons, Adroit, Daniel Ortiz, Joseph Bonfante, Victor, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Cash Getty, and Tomicus. Be sure to follow my Twitter where there's some video updates, all that kind of stuff. Follow my Instagram if you'd like. Follow my TikTok, trying to get to 3,000. And you can follow my inactive Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.